Eric from rulethewasteland.com. Pretty sure we're live now. It always takes a minute, but we have Che with us once again. We have Dean with us as well, who's going to be our guest this evening. And JJ may show up. We never know. He always says that he might. So if he pops in later, you know, that'll be great too. But for the time being, it'll be the three of us, and we can talk about whatever you guys want in the comments. And welcome, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Back there. Yeah. Evening, whatever the case may be. I hear some weird feedback. There, that got quieter.
Okay, could be the other screen that I've got up here.
Yeah, you're coming up as two windows in the chat for me, so that might be causing some of it. But
right,
welcome.
maybe I'll mute the system.
Seaway 44 says hello. Ozark Hiker says what's up. What's up, everyone?
Yeah, greetings, everybody. We've got a guest tonight, a friend of mine, Dean from Canada, Quebec specifically. And he's been prepping for a long time, and maybe Dean can go through his own introduction and whatnot. Thanks for joining us this evening yet again for a wonderful episode of, what did we call it tonight, Eric?
I think I just called it Mask Mania, but we'll be talking about all sorts of stuff.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun. These chats are always fun. But as you can see, we've got a guest. Dean, without further ado, please introduce yourself to the Prepper Trifecta community.
Well, I have been running the Canadian Preppers Network now for, geez, a little over 10 years since I took it over. It's no longer part of the American Preppers Network. We've completely separated. Everything is Canadian owned and operated now. What else? Oh, I'm a member of the Quebec Civil Security Brigade, having to do with amateur radio. So if there's a communications emergency in Quebec, I'm one of the first people they call to run in and help out.
Awesome.
Cool. Eric, how was your week?
It was good. I just go ahead.
I know we talked about it off air, but for the
right. Well, the big news is that they in Nevada, at least, they instituted a mandatory mask directive, which doesn't, as of right now, have any penalties associated with it. But due to the increase in cases that we're supposedly seeing in different states of coronavirus, are instituting a lot more stringent guidelines for mask use. And it's actually supposed to be, as of midnight on Friday, it's technically mandatory to wear a mask when you're in a public spot. They have a bunch of exemptions, including people who are experiencing homelessness and anyone who has a medical condition which would prevent you from wearing a mask, and that they're not allowed to ask you for any documentation about that for HIPAA reasons and whatnot. So generally what it looks like on the ground is just making going to any business a really annoying experience, because the businesses are worried that they're going to get cracked down on. So they're constantly trying to enforce these kind of bizarre, vague rules, but hasn't changed much. Yeah, pretty abstract. And the definition. What's up?
So go for it.
I was just going to say the definition of mask in the directive is literally anything that covers your nose and mouth. You can use an avocado skin, a colander, like it doesn't, technically you'd be following the letter of the law.
Right. Yeah. Well, hot topic. To go around the table, we'll go real quick, and Dean will get your insight first. You know, should the government regulate masks? And do you think businesses have the right to reject service if they have a mask or don't have a mask? I'll just give you my 2 cents. I think businesses can do what they want in this respect. I'm on the fence about regulating, but I think there's a great marketing opportunity. Where are, the Democrats or the Republicans put a little Trump logo on your mask and hand them out in every street corner for free? There's a great, and then it's basically advertising. Dean, your thoughts, my friend?
As far as retailers or business people are concerned, I tend to agree with you. They could do what they want. If they want to let people into their store without a mask, that's up to them. If they want to enforce that everybody coming into my store has a mask, that's up to them. When it comes to the government regulating that you must wear a mask anywhere in public, I really do have a problem with that, because that can lead to further regulations that are really not wanted. But on the other side of the coin, there are certain instances, like take public transit as one. It might not be a bad idea to mandate masks in public transit. I mean, Montreal subway system, Toronto subway system, any subway system in the world, you're cramming people in there like sardines. And quite frankly, if you have to take public transit and you don't want to wear a mask, I don't know what to say. I think you're a fool, and you can send comments to Shay at
And
No,
info at Ontario Prep.
right, yeah, there it is.
that's it.
I think I agree with both you guys pretty much on that respect, at least as far as the businesses are concerned, to where that should really be up to them. As far as the government, I kind of echo your sentiment, Dean, where it's just worrisome, the general idea of these things being mandated. The public transportation is a good point. I think that's one of the reasons we've seen places like New York have so many more cases. It's just because of that close proximity, people all taking these same things. But it's just in general, with there's so many exemptions and the fact that they haven't mandated like what even constitutes a mask, that it, in my mind, is kind of a half measure anyway. It's easily avoided by the people who are most likely to cause and spread these things. But to some extent, it's just more of a nuisance. You kind of have to go with the render under Caesar thing in these situations, whereas it really, if it came down to it, it's not like a freedom deal breaker issue for me to wear a mask or not. It's just mostly a nuisance. And if I really did think that I was sick or something, then I would do it. But that's mostly it doesn't really prevent, especially the cloth masks and stuff aren't really going to prevent most healthy people from contracting. It's mostly to prevent coughing and spreading things like that. So if you were coughing or thought that even maybe you might be sick, it'd probably be a good idea. Certainly, I don't think in general it could hurt, but I seriously doubt that it'll help either, just because, like I said, there's so many loopholes, so many different people who don't have to or can't or won't for whatever various reasons.
Yeah. You give me so many ideas just with your guys' ramblings there. What about, if the government really wanted to regulate it, then have a promotional campaign, get some real hardcore left-wing nuts. What's that one from, geez. She was on that show years ago. She was at Kavanaugh's, in the crowd at Kavanaugh, the girl. She's very, very high left-wing. Geez. Who's the boss?
Lena Dunham or something?
No, Alyssa Milano as an example.
Oh, yeah. Alyssa Milano.
Right. Hardcore left. Get her to wear some kind of mask. Give her $1,000 or $1 million or whatever she's worth these days, and have some sort of promotional campaign to make it a trend to wear a mask, or make it so all the money goes to charity. Like make pink masks. Donate all the money to breast cancer research, and you're a guy, you wear this pink mask, and you get the double whammy, which you're sort of projecting that you've got integrity. Look, I don't give a crap about what the color of this mask is, and I'm doing some sort of something good morally. Make it a fashion statement. If the government wanted to successfully get everyone to wear masks, that's the approach. I just see a lot of business opportunity.
Yeah, there's definitely all sorts of stuff you could do with it, and I do think that technically speaking, you had a genie and you could snap your fingers and everyone had masks on 100% of the time, then it would decrease the transmission of any sort of like viral respiratory infection. But just with the way it's kind of done, half-assed, people always pulling them off and touching them and then touching other things and all that sort of stuff, that I really doubt that the effect of these mandates will be even noticeable.
Yeah.
But it's hard to tell.
I think if they wanted to make people wear masks in the US, all the Democrats would have to do is print up a bunch of MAGA masks. Make America great again. All the Republicans are going to be wearing them.
I think they did sell. Didn't the Trump campaign have those? They're out there.
I don't know, but
they do exist.
Me.
Yeah, I don't know if they've really been pushed yet, but I think they do exist.
That's what I'm talking about. That way, it's not about wearing the mask. It's about some sort of projecting some other message.
What I want to know is not even mask related, is that we're supposedly seeing all these increase in cases, which that's all there really are positive tests. But so to what extent that's meaningful depends on how serious it is mostly. But also there's no mention of how many tests are being performed relative to a few weeks ago, whenever the last, because they're saying, oh, record number of cases. Like, well, are we testing 3 or 4 times as many people as we were the last time because if that's the case, then it might not be meaningful at all. If we're testing half as many and getting twice as many positives, could be incredibly meaningful. But they never mention that. So my guess is closer to the former, that we're doing many, many more tests and thus getting more positive results. But
as a result of more tests, which is not necessarily.
Which makes it hard to say then, is it really spreading, or are you just finding more of the people who you would have before anyway?
And we'll never know.
Yeah, you'll never know unless they tell you.
Yeah. What are things out there in Quebec like with respect to with numbers? I haven't really been following it lately. The general.
For the past week and a half, we've been really slowing down that curve. during the height of things, we were getting close to 1,000 cases a day with our testing. Now we're leveled off. We're way under 100 cases a day. And the government has even stopped reporting the numbers on a daily basis. They're only going to do it once a week. The numbers are gotten so low here that they're not even going to report them on a daily basis anymore.
That's good that they're decreasing that much.
They are decreasing, and it's not because we stopped testing. We're still testing. I think we're doing about between 14 and 16,000 here in the province a day.
Wow. And what's the population of the province? I have no idea.
7 point something million, maybe.
Okay. So it's equivalent to like New York City, basically, for the whole, and they're doing 10, like almost 15,000 roughly a day. That's good. I mean, that's quite a few. So it's good.
But it's taken discipline. Let's face it.
Right.
I mean, you can't walk into any retail establishment without washing your hands or just drenching them in alcohol and sanitize.
If you don't mind, Eric, I'll just have another follow-up question for Dean, and which is your premier there, which would be the equivalent to a governor in the States. It said something about, they had a policy about they're not going to be doing daily updates anymore, giving out information. Do you recall hearing something like that?
Yeah.
What's your feeling on that?
Just what I was mentioning before. It's going to be a weekly update. I think they're putting them out on Monday or Tuesday now. I kind of like it because I was getting pretty tired of hearing it. It was a daily drone on of the same thing. And Quebec has really basically deconfined itself almost completely now. Bars are opening up again. You name it. Everything is opening up again. So do we need the daily updates right now? I don't think we need the daily updates. We do need to keep pressing people to wear masks, wash their hands, cough into their elbow, do the stuff that we've been doing that has worked. But I don't think we need the daily updates anymore unless the situation changes, which they have a fear that it might. I think our health minister here is 95% convinced that there's going to be a second wave.
I think it's inevitable at this point. It's almost a certainty. If I were a gambling man, I would say second wave is going to happen. It's interesting too to look at overall Canada compared to the states with respect to the number of viruses. I know in the last week they've definitely populated, but as Eric suggested, it could be just because they're increasing the amount of testing. What's the in Quebec? I know you're a little bit rural. This may be a difficult question, but since we've got you here, what's the overall feeling socially with respect to, you go to the grocery mart or you go into town? Are people more or less kind of taking this seriously, or is it more of a 50-50? Generally speaking,
it's more of I think it's more of a 50-50. When it all started, I mean, I was wearing a mask going out almost immediately when it started. And you got weird looks, and I was wearing the old disposable N95 mask because that's what I had at the time. I had a few in stock, and you got really weird looks, and I'm not sure if it's because it was a mask or if it was because it was they had made medical masks kind of taboo around here. Like, don't use them. There's a shortage. We can't afford that. Recently, it's neither here nor there. People wear a mask or don't wear a mask, and nobody's giving anyone a second look whatsoever.
Right.
So if you're wearing a mask, you're wearing a mask. If you're not wearing a mask, you're not wearing a mask. But if someone's not wearing a mask, you might give them a wider berth when you meet them, or maybe not. I mean, I tend to try and stay a good 2 meters, 6 feet away from people, regardless of whether they have a mask or not.
A lot of the same businesses between the two different provinces, and bet you're seeing a lot of the big circle stickers on the ground and stuff like that.
Arrows taped on the grocery store aisles to see which way you're going, and occasionally you'll see some guy who's just defiant. He's going to say, "I'm just not going to do this. I don't want an arrow on the floor telling me which way to go," and he'll go charging down the wrong way in an aisle or whatever. But I mean, for the most part, people are sticking to it.
Well, I think a big part of that, and something I mentioned before, is, and I'm getting this vibe when I go out, at least, that for the most part, I would say, at least right now, especially with the mandate that we just had, that more people than not are certainly wearing them. But it's almost exclusively a social pressure thing. They don't want to stick out and act like they're into defiance. They don't feel defiance, even if they don't care about it. Like I said, it's just mostly a minor nuisance. You put on the mask, whatever. No Karen's going to yell at you. You're going to be able to go shopping without being kicked out or whatever. So, but I think the feeling that I get, and from talking to the people, it's almost exclusively just that, just because they don't want to be that guy. You know what I mean? It has really not that many people are thinking that, at least in my area. But one thing that you mentioned too, Dean, which for me is one of the biggest sources of like why I wouldn't wear one now if I decided to go out without one, is that because so early on, when I was seeing the data coming in from other countries and saying, you know, this could be a problem based on what we're seeing overseas, and saying like we might want to get these masks and start wearing them. And back then, the same people were telling us how bad it was, that it actually could make things worse to wear the masks, that you would take them out of the hands of the healthcare professionals. And like, and now you're going to do this complete and total 180, about as much of a 180 as is possible, and literally mandate them less than, I don't know, 2 months later, and say that we're shitty people now for not wanting to do it. It's like, fuck you. Like, that's where I'm at right now. Because that's just like so blatantly like 180. And just like, oh.
Well, it's
It
the
is.
epitome of showcasing why, you know, we should be prepared as individuals to begin with, which is,
right.
You know, the government has blatantly lied to us for their own
Right.
nefarious.
At least one of those things has to have been a lie, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dean, sorry, I kind of, we talked at the same time that you were going to say something.
I might have been, but I forgot by now.
Well, that brings up, I wanted to ask you too, because I know how we had been able to talk to each other, like me, Che, and JJ, at the beginning of this. Where were you at, like in the January, February, early March timeframe in terms of preparedness? I imagine you said you were out wearing a mask, so you must have felt kind of the same and realized that maybe this could be serious, or how was it looking to you at that point? Did you do anything specific preparedness-wise?
Well, I think as far as masks go, I started wearing it the day the WHO declared it a pandemic.
Okay.
And that was in March 13th, right?
Okay.
I just got reminded. My calendar is running around over there. It just reminded me. But even before then, I mean, I had been talking with Shay over emails and Facebook and stuff like that. We were pretty much on the same page. And I think we missed the mark by maybe a week as to when it was going to actually hit us here in Canada.
A week early or late?
It came a week earlier, I think, before we had thought it was really going to hit. But preparedness wise, oh yeah, we saw this coming way before they shut things down and declared it a pandemic.
That's going to be my question. For me, it was I think when we talked about this before, me and JJ around the same time, the third week of January, that's when the light bulb went. The switch turned on in my mind. Okay, this is serious. This could potentially be SHTF. You know,
Right.
we're at a factor. You know, at least a factor 3 or 4. When did that switch go off for you, Dean? You started wearing a mask when WHO announced it, but you were suggesting that you were starting to take it serious first week of January, first week of February, and what was it that?
It was in January we were starting to ramp things up. We already saw a shortage of masks. I think we ordered a bunch of masks in January.
Was there a specific event? Was there something that you saw like in the news that said, okay, this is serious?
No, it was just everything that was being brought to us through the news. It was becoming pretty obvious to me, like, this is not going to stop in China. It's not going to stop in Europe. It's not going to stop at North America. This is going to go global. So yeah, I remember ordering masks in January, and to this day I haven't got them yet.
Yeah, that's the thing is that I ordered them back that same probably late January, early February, and I think because it started in China, and that's where most of them would be made. If it had been anywhere else first, we probably would have got them at that point. But because China is where it started, so they soaked up all the supply domestically, and in conjunction with shutting down all the production, that really. Because I never got any really either. A couple big orders that they got canceled and they never ended up.
Must have been a tough few days or a couple of weeks there for some Chinese people working on the factory, making 30 cents a day. You're packing, masks and shipping it away. you know, when you need them, when you want them for your own family.
Right.
Folks, thanks for joining us on Lord Humongous, Eric's channel here. And I'm Che with Prepper Logic. We've got a special guest, Dean, tonight, CanadianPreppersNetwork.com. We've been doing this for years. If you have any questions, all caps in the comment section, please.
Yes,
And,
please.
so Dean, how are you enjoying we got to do memes here in six
I only I don't think I only have like one meme. I couldn't really find any this week.
Yeah, you were like me
I've seen
last
the
week.
show, so I have a couple of memes.
Oh,
right?
good. All right,
cool.
good. We got some good memes ready.
Uh,
I didn't do my due diligence this week as far as memes go. But I found one, I think.
My stuff isn't even like Corona related, just necessarily.
Yeah,
it's all
mine isn't.
Black
but-
Lives Matter,
Or it's all
like,
riots and stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, might as well get mine ready. So we got to have a meme off.
mine is sort of it's basically Corona related.
Yeah. So Dean, what do you think's going to happen? See, maybe I'll set the tone here for a second. There's a lot
Let's get predictive.
a lot of financial mishaps all over the planet, but I think America, with all due respect, Eric, but you know, if the world, all the countries were sand pits, then America would be the bully in that sand pits. They would be.
Don't disagree. Yeah, I mean,
if we're being honest, and each other country's doing their own thing in their respective portion of the sand pits, making sand castles, destroying sand castles, pouring cups of water, making little pools. They're doing their thing. So it's an interesting period because we've got a rise of infections and we've got financial turmoil, and it's like the bully is there's the potential that the bully could fall. You know, and all the other kids in the sandpit are kind of watching America right now to see what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, look at it.
right. And not necessarily just Corona related, but yeah, all the crazy turmoil that's happening right now.
For me, as somebody that's leans a little bit more right, why are you letting people get away with it? You know, like take over parts of Seattle?
Right. And make their own country basically. What the hell's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we'll start with you, Eric, if you'd like. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, you got this.
I don't know. I think it's going to continue to get worse in the short term. I mean, we are starting to see the energy kind of fizzle out. You know, there's not the same fervor, the same frequency of these protests as there were a few weeks ago. I mean, they are becoming a little farther removed time-wise from the events that supposedly sparked them. So we could see a resurgence when you have these cops from those cases, you know, actually have a result from their trials and things like that. We'll probably see a little spike up. But I think those were just flames that lit fuses. You know what I mean? I really don't think that most of this is based exclusively on those events. You know what I mean? Because we had been mentioning for weeks before those things even happened that people were starting to get restless and were going to start acting out, you know, and then it just like the coronavirus isn't necessarily damage the economy. It's just a pin that, you know, popped the bubble, and shutting everything down didn't help. I think that these events were just flames that lit fuses that were already there. So I don't think they've burned out just yet, but I think it'll get weirder and weirder until at least through the election.
Yeah. You know what? I'll ask you this too before we go to Dean. Who's going to win? What's your prediction? Who's going to win?
I would say at this point, I still think Trump will win, but I think it comes down to turnout for me. Like people always talk about how crappy Biden is and everything, but it has nothing to do with Biden. It could be they could have a cardboard cutout, a dog, you know, whatever, running against him, and people are just voting against Trump. So but you know, you see what feels like less fervor in his favor too. But, you know, again, we're seeing more people being attacked for supposedly supporting him. So we could be seeing similar thing to what we saw in 2016, where people are just reluctant to say they're going to support him, or maybe they're not even really that thrilled about it anymore. But are they going to vote for Biden? Probably not. I don't think there's that many people that have jumped back and forth either way. So it just comes down to who's actually going to show up in November. You know what I mean? Like not necessarily who is gaining support, because I really don't think either side has picked up that many from the other. You know, it's way too much of a stark dichotomy, you know, like there's not that big of a group of people who are like Biden or Trump and just really can't make up their mind. I really don't think there's that many people. So for me, it comes down to like the blue collar liberals in these states like Pennsylvania, like Wisconsin, and who are very socially and stuff fairly conservative, maybe union auto workers or something like that, who have who are just totally basically have nothing in common with the modern Democratic Party and the 57 genders and all this other stuff, But right, so are they? So they're not. I don't think they're going to go vote for Biden, but are they going to go vote for Trump, or are they just going to sit it out? I think that's the question.
Interesting. Dean, the floor is yours.
What Eric just said makes a lot of sense to me. Personally, I think Trump is going to get a second term. Do I like that idea? Well, he's not my president, and I can get away with saying that because I'm not an American. But yeah, I think at this point, I think he's still going to win a second term. We have yet to see any real debates, the presidential debates, where he really took Hillary Clinton to test 4 years ago. Was in those debates. So he comes out strong. Right now, I think his poll numbers are showing him pretty slumped. But I think he'll bounce back from that once he gets the debates going and gets to speak to the people directly. He'll get his base worked up. He's very, very good at doing that. And yeah, I think he'll pull out ahead and get a second term.
What do you think, Shay?
It's a bit of a toss-up. Yes, I think I think ultimately he's going to get a second term, and maybe that's why there's a bit of delayed reaction with respect to the government acting upon the asinine behaviors of the people and the part of these the anarchist movements in the states right now. Because if you're to go in with the National Guard and smack them, cuff them in the van, and then we'll just detain everybody that's being an asshole, and we'll deal with them after, then that could inadvertently have a negative ripple effect that might affect the election in some respect. Maybe. I don't know. But you've got a good point in that there's a small pool of people that are probably maybe on the fence. It's a very, very small pool. A lot of people, as you were suggesting, coronavirus, no coronavirus, it doesn't matter. They're Republican for life. They're Democratic for life. So,
and especially with Trump being so individually so polarizing that there's really not a lot that he could do that's going to pick up new voters. You know what I mean? At least not take them from Trump. Like I said, the issue comes down to whether they're going to be inspired enough to vote at all, but not whether they're really going to be pulled to one candidate or the other. It's just what turnout, I think, for me is the big
sure
issue.
turning. Oh yeah, absolutely. At the same time too, maybe there was some hesitation because maybe he thought, okay, well, if we go in fiercely with the National Guard and we start beating the crap out of people. What a phone call.
Yeah, lost audio for a second.
Anyways, yeah, I'm ready for memes.
Okay.
I got the best ones. Then
maybe you should go last. I've only got one, so I'll go first because I've only got one.
Cool. Let's do it.
So let's see. From Captain America here. He says places that occupy 100 people or more need to have masks. And the guy says, I didn't need one at your mom's house the other night. And then they have to hold him back. That's literally the only one I had.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right.
Shay, you go ahead because I can't find mine right now.
No.
And you've got to click I can do it on my phone. So next time I'm going to do it on another Zoom account here in a second, but maybe I'll do it on my phone after. And I've got to find my link here too. So while I'm doing that, I'm not sure if Eric's been watching the chat window or not. It's nice that everybody has it's like people come here every week just to chat and have their own little conversations.
Yeah, exactly. They have nothing to do with us.
Like background noise, like jazz in the background,
right.
to their conversations. But if you do have a question, all caps and put a question mark after
Right.
whatever that you're saying. And we'll be happy to give you some preparedness perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see what you got.
I think I'm muted. Yeah, I'm muted. So I shouldn't have an echo.
Okay.
Share screen. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. You're pulling a JJ.
Oh, shit. Okay. Let me see. Multiple participants. All participants. All right. Should work now. My
All
bad.
right. Yeah.
It defaults back to that every time.
I'm just got to make sure I don't have anything like bad.
Right. And your tentacle
Related.
pointing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can see my screen, so that means you should
I
be
can
able
see
to
a zoom. Yeah. And I see your
Yeah.
tabs.
There we go. I have information that will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton. Name
Aunt
number.
Jemima.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this movie with.
What? Footloose?
Yes.
She's gonna go. She's gonna go show the uptight restaurant patios to learn how to live again with dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw this one.
Yeah, I put that on my wall.
You know what's interesting? I've got a few comments about that case when you're done with your memes.
Well, go for it. Well,
Oh, is this gonna? Oh, you don't have a few more?
yeah, I got a couple more. Sure.
Yeah, let's just see them
Here
first.
we go. When blacks kill blacks, niggas get shot every day, B. When whites kill blacks, black lives matter. Right. Yeah, I'm the only one that can laugh at that, I suppose. It's me being prepared for 2020.
I saw this one.
Yeah.
You think you got everything covered, and then something slips through the cracks.
Yeah, did I notice this? It was Prepared Mind 101.
Well, that's your favorite, right?
Yeah. No, he's a nice guy. Chris Tanner. I caught it on his Facebook. Like, why would you put your logo on there? And
To make it seem like you weren't prepared, right?
I guess I don't know. He never replied. So I don't know, Chris Tanner. And I love this one. This is a great way to end it. Wait until the people who just want to be left alone get involved. And I think that speaks for a majority of the preparedness community to me, because I think, and I made a video about this not too long ago, which is that it's not the preppers ripping down statues. Preppers are, they're generally more conservative, and they're just sort of sitting back, watching this hysteria unfold. It's very entertaining. And that's what we're doing. Kicking back. Dean, what do you got?
You get yours set up, Dean?
Right. I did. I found them here.
Okay, great. Now you're authorized to share. It should be at least.
Yes. The gracious Eric.
I permitted. The crown permits you to share your memes.
Is that one up? Strip clubs in 2020?
No, you gotta. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm still seeing
I'm not sure I
your.
want to see his memes.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you want to. There we go. Now it started. So yeah, there we go.
Elbow jobs, $15.
Elbow.
Yeah. I'm down.
Yeah, right. Give it a shot.
This one's probably not.
I can see it. It says one of those dad jokes, the Carl
Yeah,
memes.
one of the dad jokes. I can't even read it here.
He said,
no one in
one.
Antarctica has COVID-19. Dad, don't. It's because they're isolated.
He's like, please stop.
Please stop.
He's like, Coral.
And here's another one. Shocking development. Statues around the world are now fighting back.
Yeah. Good one.
Good.
All right, that's all I have.
Eric, Eric. I think Eric had that one last week.
Yeah, I got that
did
one
he?
popped up because last week was all those people trying to pull down statues. So I had a few statue memes last week.
So we'll let it slide this time since you're a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's got to be man. That was hilarious, man. We got to get mandatory memes. If you're a guest on the show, you got to have. You got to bring me.
You got to bring those fire memes.
William McCaslin. Do you Canadians have the right to recall Trudeau? I don't understand what that means. Dean, would you? I guess
you're saying, can you do a recall of your prime minister or something like that, like a emergency election, like they have for some of these gubernatorial positions or whatnot?
I'm sure there's some procedure buried deep in parliamentary law somewhere, but
they would take a massive supermajority. something.
Who knows? Yeah. They could always do a vote of non-confidence, which is even more complicated. When the government presents a budget, it has to be agreed upon at the end of the day by all the parties, and if they don't all agree, then it's called a vote of non-confidence, and that could force an election. But to just recall him just out of the blue because he's being an idiot, no,
Probably not.
I don't think we have that ability.
Oh yeah, so I was thinking about the Bubba Wallace thing, and I know you might have thought the same thing, Che, because I know you're a Knots guy. But when I first heard about this, first of all I was pretty sure it was a hoax, and also I was like a Jussie Smollett thing, but also I was like, how much you want to bet that this isn't even like I hear noose and I'm thinking it's probably like a bow line or just any other actual loop, that people are just calling a noose. But apparently, at the very least, they didn't confirm that rope had been there for years before he ever used that bay. But at the very least, I've seen pictures of it, and it was actually a noose. So someone at least knew how to tie a real noose for the garage pool, like it,
Wow.
But as I was telling someone else, like a noose it is a knot. It's a real, like a slip knot,
Yeah,
type of knot. So it's not just any loop in a rope that you use someone to hang people with. It is actually a specific knot.
Line in such a way that
that it can slide down. Right. So I was actually like, oh well, at least it is really a noose.
Yeah,
not just a loop.
Right. Well, that's a relief. At least it was really a noose.
Right.
So we get it. A bowline would probably be more practical.
Right, because you wouldn't need a slipping thing. I mean, I think someone just like tied stuff and we're like, oh, look at
that's kind of creepy because I do. Well, I know guys that know a lot more hitches and knots than I do, but I've got a few skills up my sleeve, so to speak. But I've never crossed my mind to ever learn to make a noose because of the practicality. When would you ever,
right? There's other much more simple slip loops that you can make for things that it's just someone's. Let's talk about prepping. Says it wasn't a slip knot though, was it? It was a loop. From the picture I saw, it was tied to at least look like a noose. Someone said it was was not a functioning noose. So maybe they just wrapped it around to look like a noose and it wasn't actually a slip knot. But at the very least, like I said, it was actually at least purposely formatted to look like a noose, even though it was already there. So it wasn't like I was waiting for someone to see just a regular loop with like a half hitch in it, and people, oh my God, a noose, that's what I was expecting. So like, oh, well, at least it was a noose. And then we got another dad joke here. It says, no noose is good news. Banned, blocked, and reported.
Yeah. That's it. Get him out.
Yeah, right. He's out of here.
There was one that was in from Leo Santini, our woman hotter, and we're getting
into the weeds.
Yeah, or a woman hotter in masks. All right, we got
only if they're the type that would be uglier without it.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of a tautology, but if they've got a busted lower half of their face, then yeah, they probably look better with the mask on.
Yeah. Or turn off the lights.
If they're incredibly attractive, probably not.
Dean, would you care to compliment all that?
Absolutely not. I'm not touching that one with anybody else's 10-foot pole.
Well, you gentlemen take the floor for a minute because I do have two other memes I'm going to bring up.
Oh, okay.
Download that are specific to Smollett. Or not Smollett, Wallace.
Bubba Wallace, yeah.
Bubba Wallace. What kind of
Let's
name
talk
is
about prepping. Said, yeah, it had a bundled knot, but I find it unlikely it was tied. That it was because I would imagine there's a functional purpose. Yeah, I mean, they definitely, at the very least, they verified that it had been there for years. They had video footage of that bay being used for other things. And so if they proved that it was not anything directed at him, that someone had tied it in an unusual way.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that it's not so much as a noose, how can I explain? I need a piece of rope. That's what I need to demonstrate it. A bowline would be more practical because the loop would hold its
stay
place.
Open. Yeah,
it holds, right.
So you can grab it and pull it down. So a noose wouldn't be as practical because it would tighten up over your hand over time.
Right.
And
unless they had some other sort of handle or something attached to that rope and they were using that to cinch it down, but it doesn't look like that was the case.
Yeah, But it does have a sort of a Smollett feel to it in
It just
that
did, yeah.
people on the left, I hate to say it, if you're left, good, all the power to you. But there's a part of the disproportionate number of your congregation within your Democratic leftist meetings that are looking to play the victim.
Right.
I mean, Smollett is the shining example of a man that says, I'm willing to commit a crime for sacrifice myself in lieu of the greater good, which is my political.
And I just find the reaction to all that like distasteful, regardless of whether it was real or not. Like all of a sudden, oh, you go around, have all the drivers rally around and push your car, and you do the whole media tour. I would, if that was me, I would have been like, fucking assholes, cut the thing down, and, gone about my day, not tried to make some giant press tour out of it.
Right. Exactly. And there's obviously incentive there too, which is a good point.
Right. Yeah.
There's money. Exactly.
I've actually heard it put that the demand for racism in America exceeds the supply. So like literally, of course, racism is a real thing. But when you have these people that literally benefit from being a victim, like something like Justice Smollett before he was caught, or in this case, think of like, no, I'm not in NASCAR. I never would have heard this guy's name. He never won a race or anything. And now look how many people know who he literally benefited from this, whether or not he did it on purpose. So when you have that, it incentivizes, it's an adverse incentive basically, or a perverse incentive. It incentivizes bizarre behavior. Like I said, even if he didn't know that it was, or try to make it, or, fabricate it himself or whatever, it definitely helped him. So.
Dean, what do you think? You've been quiet.
Very, very possible that it was just, if you want to call it a media ploy or what you would want to call that, but for sure he could have been, it's a loop and a rope and it's hanging on my garage. So, hey, let's get my 15 minutes of fame. Maybe I'll get a new sponsor out of it or whatever. Very well could have been. Whatever it was, it looked like it was completely blown out of proportion.
Right.
It was a knot tied to a garage door handle so that someone could reach up and pull it down. Right. That's exactly what it was. We've all seen the pictures of it now. It was not a noose. It had been there for, Eric, you said years. I had heard months the last time I had heard anything.
No, they said the FBI, when they did their investigation, said at least as far back as 2017 or 2020 something, or maybe 2019, but it's very least a year.
Yeah, it just shows you that,
see if I can find it.
Possibilities of what it could be, and it must be the possibility.
Oh yeah, I said it was tied in 2019. Sorry. So the FBI had been in the garage since last year, and Wallace was therefore not a victim of a hate crime. But I've seen other people post videos where they show that there was already ropes there and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
In those garages.
Previous teams that had access to it. I'm going to share the two memes that I have relating to this.
Okay.
The first one is KKK found next to water cooler in Bubba Wallace's garage. Yeah, KKK hoods. And the second one is Talladega Night Sky. Will Ferrell. You know what else they didn't find in Wallace's garage?
True. So, that's funny.
Yeah, I saw the two of those today when I got home. I was online for a little bit, and I saw those two memes. I almost picked them up, but I said, nah.
Unfortunately, the first of many, I think. Not the memes. I mean,
the event, the occurrence.
Yeah, the occurrence. It's people like us, preppers, are just going to look at it and try and process how anyone could be so asinine or stupid or whatever. But this Wallace incident is stuff like this is just going to continue, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
But let me show you the picture of it at least, so we can see what I was talking about. See if you guys can. Do you see that one? That's the picture of it. So it does actually look like a noose.
Oh, it does actually look.
I've never
even if it's tied in a way to be non-functional, like let's talk about prepping instead, they might have just literally wrapped it around itself, not really
Yeah.
had tied it properly. But at the very least, it does at least resemble a noose knot and not just a random loop at the end of the rope. But you could still look at it for half a second, realize it was tied to the door, like every other bay in that building, and
Yeah.
and realize that it was a garage. But I mean,
Maybe it's a
so,
functioning noose, maybe not.
right. I was surprised that it even looked like one, to be honest, though. But yeah, all right. So it's like I was like, okay, at least it is, a noose. But I
Yeah.
wouldn't like I said, and then you'd be like, oh, why is this tied as an? And it's just a random, a little bit of a stretch, I think, to think that someone did that at you personally. But
You raise it. At least you bring up a couple of interesting questions of thought, Eric, with showing me that photo, which is their team is in there. Isn't
right.
one of their team members closing the garage door at the end of the shift every night? So they would know.
There are people. Like, how many people really would know ahead of time who is going to be in what bay and have access? You know what I mean? It would be a handful of people. That was it. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe an independent person that doesn't close the garage door. Part of their team. I guess that's plausible. And yeah, I don't know. It's very, very. What do the other garage doors have to close their doors?
Yeah, they said in the report or the FBI report that was the only one that had an actual noose. They all had the ropes with some with various kinds of knots and loops on them, but that was the only one that looked like a noose, is what they said.
Well, it does kind of look like a noose. It does.
Yeah,
but
that's what I said. I was like, oh, it does actually look like a noose.
Maybe the guy had a really long piece of rope,
right?
Dragging on the ground, and just wrapped it around the tip.
Right. Well, maybe the guy figured out how to tie him and was like, hey, I can tie nooses. And just.
I mean, let's face it. It looks like a noose. It absolutely looks like a noose.
Right.
And it could have been, if it was there for a year or years, it could have been a racist statement by whoever put it there.
Or maybe if you're the guy that's closing the garage door at the end of the day, you want to kill yourself.
Yeah.
So
maybe he tried to kill himself and then it just lowered down because it was on the door and he was like, oh man, and lived another day and just left it on. He's like, goodbye, cruel world. And then the garage door just closes and he's like, wow, all right.
He's practicing for the real time.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It could have also been there from a previous race, and the guy who came in second lost the race by like 2 inches. And somebody said, here, buddy, you know what? Just give up.
Yeah, like as a joke. Like, here you go. I got you.
Joke like that.
Right.
I mean, who knows? If the thing's been there for 2 years or whatever, then obviously it's impossible that it was directed at that guy.
Right. Doesn't mean it wasn't as some sort of statement, but at the very least, we know for a fact it wasn't directed at him.
Maybe it could have been a statement pro capital punishment that somebody was making. Have absolutely nothing.
Or like you said, a joke like, "Hey, why don't you kill yourself, you loser?" When somebody,
we just don't know. But try and find the guy that's going to admit today to actually tying it to ask him why he did it.
Right. Yeah, because
there's no way anybody's going to admit that. Oh, that was me that tied that because of
right. Yeah, because like, well, you have nothing to gain from that.
Exactly.
What about this? Here we go. It's future projection racism conspiracy theory.
Okay.
A year ago or 2 years ago, when they decided we're going to be racist against Bubba Wallace, how can we do it so we don't get caught? Say, well, we'll tie the noose now, and 2 years from now, we'll make his team go and take that bay.
Right. If he's still racing.
Obviously, it was
the plausible
traveling lizard people, Illuminati.
Right. Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, gentlemen, I'll touch on another hot topic here.
Let's do it.
Confederation flag was removed from NASCAR because there was some, I'm not too sure, connection or affiliation. Yeah. I personally, as a man of color, I don't even see myself as color. I see myself as a man, human. I don't think they should have removed it, personally. Although I will admit I'm sort of ignorant to what that particular flag or symbol means, and maybe it has some sort of connection or has some sort of rooted lineage to racism or slavery. I don't know, but we can't.
Yeah, I definitely think that you could make the case that it's not hard to make the case that it does, but I also think that it's obvious that for most people in these areas, it's part of state flags and things like that. It definitely just represents to them their area, their lifestyle. You know what I mean? but like, yeah, of course it has connections to the Confederacy, which has connections with slavery and all that. That's not hard to see. But I think it's obviously totally disingenuous to act like all the Southern people who are displaying Confederate flags are making any sort of statement about racism or
Is that
slavery.
it, Eric?
You know
Is
what I
that
mean?
is that the big connection? That's why they're pissed at this Confederate flag.
Yeah.
Is the fact that
It
it has
represented the South
connections?
in the Civil War, and to them, then that was about slavery. So that's the connection. That's it. Yeah, I mean, but also, like I said, it's literally part of state flags, the stuff that people have grown up with, and TV shows like Dukes of Hazzard and stuff like that, that were obviously not about slavery. So even though you can say, oh, this was a symbol used by that, it's like it's also fairly obvious that that's not what any of these people are referencing. You know what I mean? When they have it on their car
Right,
or on their,
exactly.
you know what I mean?
Not like they're saying, fuck black people.
No, they're being like, go to the South or whatever. You know what I mean? Like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the Confederate flag represents more of the Southern heritage.
That's what I mean. And yeah, that's what.
Than racism. There are certainly people that will use it that way, but I don't think for the majority of people that it represents a pro-slavery.
No, of course not. But the argument, and I don't like this argument. The argument is still like, oh, but it's not up to these people to decide what is offensive to people who have been oppressed or whatever. But then now, when you make that rule, then you're just totally at the whim of what upsets and like whatever group it is you decide should be able to make that conclusion. You know, if you really say that these groups of people we have to stop using or start using various symbols and words and stuff depending on what is upsetting, like I am just not on board that train. You know what I mean?
It's the wrong path.
The wrong metric to use. Yeah. And same thing with the statues. Like lots of people have done things that were immoral or wrong or whatever, whether that was even wrong at the time of their when they were living or not. But I think just to go around and just because you found one thing that you don't like about, try to tear everything down. Like you go to, like I said, the pyramids built by slaves. Is there a certain age point at which it's a historical or monument and it's safe from that? And now it's old enough that it's meaningful or what, you know, like it's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
It's related. Sorry, Dean, go for it.
It was a social norm at one point to own a slave.
Right.
So you're gonna
find many different countries.
Yeah.
I find it bizarre, this idea that like America invented slavery, because slavery has been around for thousands of years.
No,
yes. But that's definitely what seems to be promoted.
Yeah. But I mean, at any given time, there's going to be countless numbers of people who did great things in the world who also owned slaves, but it was the thing that was done.
Yeah, and I made in the last trifecta, I think I mentioned the similar thing to like a if you grew up in a tribe of cannibals, you would have been eating human meat from the time you were a kid and something, and the idea that some person would have just recognized that this was gross or wrong or whatever as like a 10-year-old or something, and that's when they've been brought up this way. That doesn't mean that that's right, but it should put it into context of like, oh, are we going to eliminate this person from history because of this? So, and they try to do the same thing with people like Martin Luther King and various misdeeds that they may have done. Like, are you really going to wipe out anything they did just because they did something wrong? You know what I mean?
To me, it screams leftist motivations and actions based primarily on feelings, and the white man is the oppressor and the symbol of all that is evil against their various ideologies, right? Because there's so many different. Ask any number of people what defund the police means and that support it, and you'll get a bunch of different responses. Right. The rationality speaks to me tremendously in that I talked to my daughter about this today. We're talking about just the nonsense that's going down there. If you wanted to remove a statue because of the nefarious, immoral actions of an individual, and you want to review it and have a debate about it socially, democratically, you take the statue out of a construction crew there. You would take it, put it down on a crate in a truck, and you put it into a museum or put it into a storage unit. Who knows?
Right. Yeah.
For 3 years or 5 years or 20 years until you can have some sort of mutual understanding socially to what we're going to do with it. Are we going to bring it back about a plaque to say this guy was a piece of shit for owning slaves?
Right.
Or are we going to, recycle the metal and put it back into society, make a little emblems that are sold for some sort of
Right.
nonprofit to support the cause that he was against? No.
Right, and you have to have a
The
standard
rationale-
too.
Right. But their standard is, let's take that statue down, smash it to the ground, and run around and say like, woo, that's
Right.
Which just
Yeah.
says that it's not about that individual so much in his past as much as it is the symbolism of removing the statue of a
Yeah,
woman.
and about it's the same as running on smashing car windows and stuff, and you know what I mean. It's really not that, because they're even hitting random like statues that were specifically people who had helped end slavery and stuff, and they're to see a statue now and they're smashing it. You know what I mean? And it's just,
Yeah.
so it's
Well,
obviously
it begs the question: in 100 years from now, are they going to be arguing to bring down statues of people who have done great things in history because they owned a gasoline car?
right. And
Well,
Greta,
heck.
Greta says that that's bad, so now we got
Yeah, but everybody runs a gasoline car at this point in time, or almost, you know.
Right.
But
yeah.
That's
they were
the shitty
just
thing
doing
about
back
Greta.
then what people did.
Yeah,
Greta's going to be around for a long time. I mean,
because she's
that-
young, right?
Right. So
But isn't she like a vegan or something? So she probably might get sickly and kick off a little sooner.
have some bad black beans. in her
Yeah.
stew.
Like a little anemic or something.
How dare you?
You've ruined my childhood.
Turn her on to romaine lettuce. We seem to have a problem with romaine lettuce all the time. Maybe
We need to
that'll-
tell her the nutria. Aren't they like also a super invasive species up in the like Wisconsin and Michigan? And I don't, is that a good thing in Canada? The nutria, those fucking muskrat things that are from like South America. And they
Nah,
take
we've
talking
got
about
other things
okay.
here, like raccoons and shit.
Yeah, because there's like this type of muskrat thing that's from, I think it's from South America, and they're just like a giant water rat, and they've invaded. They were trying to train people, or not train people, but incentivize people to like eat them, like, oh, they're delicious and stuff, because they're just everywhere and they survive really well. So this horrible invasive species.
You got a few. You got a few. What about that one snake that
The snakehead
travels
thing?
around?
Well, I think there's a fish. The fish is there's a snakehead fish which can
Yeah,
travel
that's-
on land in between like different lakes, and they're like these
That's like-
kind of like a walleye looking barracuda thing, but they're
Yeah.
really invasive species and just fucking eat everything.
What's the other one? There's a fish that jumps
There's
out of the
the
water.
Asian carp, yeah, that they'll jump out of the
That's right.
water and like fucking KO people because they're like going on a speedboat, and these things jump out of the water and smack, and they're like a 30-pound fish. And you're like, I think some
Yeah.
lady got killed by them.
Really?
Yeah.
What a way to go.
Here, I'm going to show you the nutrias first, at least. They're like a
Sure.
scraggly ass rat. Yeah, doesn't it look delicious? Like, bite it. They're kind of like beavers.
Yeah, it does look.
They're like
looks
a
lot
beaver
like a
muskrat.
beaver.
They're a beaver with like a skinny rat tail. But yeah, and they're just
Wow.
invasive. And somewhere for a while, at one point, they were like, they had a bounty on the tails. You know, they wanted people to trap them and stuff. And so you get like $5 a nutria tail or something like that. So I was thinking if you could come up with like a massive farming operation in your backyard, just like raise these like nutria by the tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Well, you were saying
Or
that
even
the,
grow mutant ones, like play with the genes and grow mutant ones that have like 7 tails.
right?
I'll try to find the snakehead.
You were saying that about the firearms too, where they
Yeah, the zip guns where the guy made one out of like a block of 2x4 and a piece of pipe, and then sold them back for $50. He made like cost him
They had a
$4
recall.
each. Yeah,
Right.
he went to the gun buyback where it was like no, like an amnesty, and and sold these zip guns for $50 a pop. That's amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah.
While you're looking that up, body, I should read these questions in advance. Body expolitic. What do you guys think the next panic buying item will be? Dean, what will the next panic buying item will be? To give you some context while we're thinking about it, I think it was necessary. I
Yeah.
wouldn't think necessarily about items.
Well, here's the
Purpose of
snakeheads
buying.
while you're looking.
But
It's
we
like a
also
weird,
have,
here's the snakehead. They're like an eel barracuda thing,
yeah,
and they just eat everything.
and they travel on land.
Yeah, they can hop across small distances. They can hold water in their gills or something like
That's
that. And,
exactly what I was thinking, because I was thinking fish, but I said snake.
yeah, and
Right.
snakehead. Yeah,
Last week, we talked about plexiglass. It was like,
Mm.
wow, you would be a million. There was a good 2, 3, 4 week period, maybe even right now, You can make a lot of money just installing sheets of glass, or even being a supplier as being a very hot item. Because if you want to get back in business from a retail perspective, plexiglass is a good thing. So I didn't see that coming. But what do you think, Dean?
Right.
What's the next hot item?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I've been so floored by some of the things that were toilet paper. I mean, who the hell stockpiles toilet paper like that? I just like, I know Shay does. I've seen the wall,
Yeah.
and I'm not one to talk. At last count, I think I had about 700 rolls of toilet paper here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
But interestingly enough, not one roll was bought since this all started. This was all stuff that I had. Just as
Right.
general-
Yeah, and that's what we'd said multiple times. That like none of the everyone's like, oh, you're panic buying. I'm like, man, we're dusting this stuff off. We've had it since 1995. Don't blame me.
I've seen the weirdest stuff. Like if you go into the crafting section of a store and you can't find elastic.
Yeah.
Elastic material. I mean, we went to
masks, yeah, because that's
for our
people
kids, and we couldn't find elastic anywhere. So it was like the weirdest thing. But
hard to predict.
what's the next thing? It's almost impossible to predict because people are all over the place with it.
Yeah, we saw freezers, like chest freezers, are basically sold out everywhere. I still haven't been able to get one. I waited like an extra 2-3 weeks longer than I should have. And I mean, now they're popping up a little bit, but like vastly overpriced. Another hard one to predict because people are anticipating different types of food shortages and things like that. Yeah. So hard to say what I think will be next. We're seeing ammo and guns right now are getting sold out everywhere. Ammo you can still find online. I'm thinking about making a enormous purchase just because I'm going to use it eventually. You know what I mean? And like I go shooting recreationally fairly regularly. So I really don't think at any point over the next 10, 20 years is it going to be either cheaper or more easy to procure. So I might as well just buy like 10 grand at once right now and at least have it. So I'm thinking about doing that. But that's been ongoing. So I wouldn't say that would be a new thing for ammo.
You're a prepper when.
Yeah.
10 grand on ammo. That's a firm.
Yeah, someone said something like, "You're gonna end up on a list." I'm like, bro, if there's a list, I'm definitely already.
I'm on lists already. I know I'm on lists.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think I. That one's in the cards already.
Yeah, I think the three of us are on an even like a secondary special list.
Yeah, special list.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I know some of the comments I made on Trudeau's press conferences got me on a list for sure.
Yeah. Someone mentioned physical gold and silver, which again. I definitely agree, but I think that's already started. So I don't know if I would consider it the next thing to get because you're already seeing supply, like stuff sold out constantly, silver specifically, and premiums have jumped up like $10 and stuff for like a Silver Eagle. Has like $10 or $12 premiums on them now. So even at a spot price of 17, 18 bucks, whatever, it's like 25 plus to 32, whatever. It's crazy.
Mary Ann Atkinson, no yeast in stores in months, like everyone suddenly became Martha Stewart. You can make your own yeast. You can capture. You don't make it. What you do is you actually capture it. Maybe Dean can give his 2 cents on that.
Yeah, if you want to get into sourdough, which everybody seemed to be doing during this pandemic, I guess they had nothing better to do. But yeah, you can capture natural yeast from your kitchen. It works better if you're a regular bread baker because it will be in the air. But I've done it before and it took me 2 or 3 tries to do it. I got some kind of yeast, but it was not. When it starts turning green and blue and orange and stuff, you know you get the wrong one. But basically a flour and water mixture in a bowl, and you set it out to let it capture the yeast. And once you see a bubbly start to form and stuff, there's a way of just replenishing it and feeding it every day. And you have a sourdough starter, which is natural yeast. But as far as yeast being out of the stores for months, they're around us anyway. There was a period of a few weeks where you couldn't buy flour, you couldn't buy yeast. It just wasn't anywhere. And then all of a sudden it's back on the shelves. Like nothing ever happened, and I can go buy all the yeast, all the flour that I want to today without going to more than one store. I won't have to look for it. It's everywhere toilet paper, paper towel, napkins, you name all that stuff that was in shortage is all back in stock, gangbusters, and no problems anymore. The shortages seem to be fairly short-lived, thankfully.
Yeah, I will say I'll venture a guess is that if we see a resurgence or a continuation of these protests and riots and whatnot, things like personal, like self-defense stuff, like pepper spray, body armor, tasers, stuff like that, could be hard to get or get momentarily bought out too.
Hard not to disagree with that. That's for certain.
Yeah.
I mean, as things progressively get more crazy, and I think
Right.
I don't see a civil war, but I do see a lot more craziness in the U.S. Yeast is. I've been successful just with my 2 cents, and I've been the one way that I heat up my bread too, or put in the barbecue. You get a hot sunny day, don't even turn the barbecue on because it's just sort of a.
To use it like a solar oven. That's pretty
Basically.
cool.
Yeah, and I've had the bread rise. It's been a good experience. Will there be this is from 01, it's a unique name, 01. Will there be a second lockdown, stay at home in the USA? I don't know. We're not, epidemiologists here, let alone psychics or rubbing a crystal ball. We can give you our perspectives as preparedness individuals. But the information that I have based on the logic that I bring into my mind through the various sources suggests, yes, there's going to be a second wave and potentially a second lockdown in the US because you've got all these idiots running around interacting with each other and, basically face fucking each other, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
I
I definitely think we'll see some. I don't think there'll be a national one necessarily, but I think there'll definitely be some localized lockdowns to some extent. I mean, we're already seeing some reaction with the mask mandates. So obviously, if we see anything continue to get worse in positive tests or however they want to measure, then they'll do something. And lockdowns are pretty much the only next step in my mind.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that one for sure. On like a city to city basis, like New York might be a great example that might get shut down, or wherever you have a small pocket, they might shut it down locally. A national shutdown, and I'm almost scared to say this on the air, totally dependent on the election. If Trump wins, no second national lockdown whatsoever. It won't happen. If Biden wins, huge possibility that there will be one.
How come?
To me, and this is just my perspective, and remember, I'm watching it from outside the States, so I may not have everything, but from the perspective I have, Trump is willing to sacrifice whatever he can to keep the economy going, and he doesn't want to hear about numbers. He doesn't want to hear about deaths. He does not want to be embarrassed or have to deal with this pandemic whatsoever. Biden, on the other hand, is going to listen more to science, and he's going to start locking things down. There may be talk from Biden about mandatory masks and stuff like that. But if Trump wins this election, this virus in the States is going to run its course. As nasty as it gets, Trump will let it run its course. It will not matter to him how many people die from it.
You can't argue with that logic at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with that. The thing that I think is slightly could affect that is the fact that, like we're saying, that they're not going to institute these on a federal level. So I would suspect there'll be a lot of governors who will be like, oh, we have to lock down because Trump is letting this, look at what he made me do kind of thing before the election to try and kind of foment opposition. Maybe. That would be my suspicion.
Ironic in some respects in that, and I agree with you, or agree with both of you, agree with you, Dean, in saying that Biden's going to use science and rationality, but it's ironic because they don't use rationality in all sorts of other areas.
And they're going to be very reluctant to tell people they shouldn't go out protesting. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lockdown, so don't protest. They're still going to let them do that. So it would be mostly a toothless lockdown in certain areas. But
yeah.
But again, I definitely think regardless of the political parties, if there's enough of a resurgence in cases, then we'll see it.
Unfortunately. I think a lot of people are going to be pretty pissed off. And
Yeah, it would take. I think it would take a lot because everyone knows that. But if it gets twice as bad as the worst, you know what I mean, and it's really is starting to fill up hospitals or something, which outside of a few very small areas hasn't actually been happening, then they would do it. But I think it will take more at this point.
it's kind of shitty too to think that there's some political motivation with respect to this virus,
Right.
and that specific to the US, because it's a pretty big election, and certain decisions are being made not based on human life necessarily as being the primary reason or rationality, but rather on political ideologies. So it's just, people, basically, if humans and politicians specifically were good, moral, honest people, then the coronavirus would not be as much of an issue or have an impact in the US as it is going to be having in the coming months, I think.
True.
We've got a big election. It's a big year,
Yeah. Definitely. Interesting times. Guess we'll find out. Did we lose you, Che? You kind of froze up on me.
Yeah, it looks like.
Yep, he's jacked up. Not moving.
But here's an interesting question, though.
Yeah.
When we're talking about, people are asking about, will there be a second lockdown? Will there be a second wave? Mm-hmm. Has the U.S. really finished its first wave yet?
That's what I was going to mention earlier in the stream. It kind of popped in my head and I forgot to say something, is that at what point are you really calling it a second wave and not just a continued kind of increase? Is it really just not just the first wave still getting bigger? Yeah. I think you would have to, for it to be a second wave, you would have to get to where the first wave had pretty much all but completely died out, which hasn't really happened. So yeah, in that sense, I wouldn't call what's happening, even if we are seeing a legitimate increase in cases and not just an increase in testing, I still wouldn't call this a second wave because it's just an increase. It's just still happening. So that'd be my view.
Just a different curve of the first wave. It's not like here in Canada, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, in Quebec, our little province, about 7.5 million people, we were getting close to 1,000 cases a day when we first started testing everything.
Right.
We're right down. We're well under the 100 cases a day, like 50 to 60 cases a day now.
Wow.
And I mean, most of that here was happening in the old folks' home.
Right.
The number came out like 90% of the cases were in long-term care facilities, which was a buck of its own.
Right.
But really, it was so overblown, I think, to the point somewhat that the general public wasn't really all that affected.
Right. Like if you look around you on a day-to-day basis, you're not seeing all these people that outside of hospitals and nursing homes just struck down with this. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we all saw the horrible pictures claimed to be when this all started in China. Look, Chinese people are dropping dead in the streets.
Right.
Or is it just a picture of some drunk guy that fell down on his way home? We don't know.
Right. And also somebody once said to me about China was that even if you're 1 out of 1 million, there's 1,000 of you there. So a relatively low occurrence event could still be happening by the hundreds all over China just because of how many people they have. So eventually with most of the whole of their cities are on video and digitally surveilled, so that even if 1 out of 1 million people season falls over, they're going to have video of that somewhere, and that'll show up on the for me, what I looked at originally to determine that it was worth preparing for was their reaction to it, not necessarily video of people falling over, whatever, but the fact that the government did such an extensive lockdown, when I know they really don't, like if their choice was between shutting down the economy and giving up 10, 20, 50,000 lives of their citizens, I don't think that would even be a choice for them. They would just keep full steam ahead. They care about the machine more than they do about their people, in my mind. But at least the government.
At the same time, I think they know that their machine is unstoppable at this point. Or that they feel that it's unstoppable. Like, we could take a 2-month break and it's not going to affect anything.
Maybe that could have been it, but to me, my perspective was they saw this as being serious enough to totally shut down a massive portion of their economy. People who don't really care that much about their citizens individually probably felt that was necessary. So to me, that said, this thing might be pretty serious. And the information at the time from Italy and stuff seemed to support that. But then it came over here and, it could be different strains, who knows? but we just didn't see that level. It could be the fact that there's more spread out here. We're not as dense, and that's why it hit areas like New York almost a lot worse. But in general, in the U.S., it's definitely not as bad as I suspected that it would be, a few months ago, and that's good. I mean, it's definitely good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also remember seeing a meme, and I should have saved that for this show. It just kind of dawned on me now what I could have done with that. And there was no picture or anything to it. It was just words, and it said Johnny woke up and turned off his alarm clock made in China, and then got dressed in his clothes that were made in Indonesia,
Right.
then got into his car that was made in Japan, and drove to the welfare office wondering why he still can't get a job.
Right.
And a lot of people are going like, oh yeah, buy Canadian or buy American or whatever.
Right,
and I was like, yeah, I got a brand new meme for you. Johnny never made it there because he can't afford an alarm clock made in America, and he can't afford clothes that were made in Canada. The reason these are cheap is because of labor. Labor is cheap over there, and that's why. And I guarantee you, if everybody wanted to say, and it's great, you know what? If you can buy locally or buy American or buy Canadian or whatever, you can, go for it. But if you did that for every single item that you buy as a consumer, you wouldn't own 1/10 of what you do today.
Or you would be just paying 10 times as much.
10 times as much. Or I just don't
if you
think
somehow
people
had
could
the
afford
money.
it.
Yeah, if they had the money. Right. And that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not an option for certain things. Like you look around, and even if you were dedicated to doing that, there's certain things that you would just have to go without. Like you said, you'd have 1/10 the number of things. They're just not made here anymore.
Yeah.
And then as a company, when you decide to make that thing, are you really going to be able to start and keep your business going at a cost for, 3 or 4 times what your competitors are paying? Probably not,
Yeah.
So that's definitely makes it rough.
And I mean, I do have to say, I mean, let's take cars. I mean, we've always bought American cars, Fords, Chryslers, whatever. Jay's back. The only car we didn't ever have that wasn't an American car was a Honda Accord, an old Honda Accord that we bought, and it was the biggest piece of junk that I ever owned.
Oh, really?
I was so happy to get rid of it. These days, one of our cars is a Jeep Patriot, and I was in a parking lot, and my fiance had gone into the bank, and I was standing outside the car having a cigarette because I don't smoke in the car with the kids in the car. And there was a woman with an imported car. I think it was a Mazda, and she was reversing. I'm watching her, and I'm like, she's gonna hit it. And sure enough, bang, hits the front of our Jeep with the back end of her car. And I'm like, whoa, like stop, like where you just hit us. And I walked in between the vehicles. I took a look, and there's like a scratch. I kind of went like, oh, my car's all right, but your bumper is gonna need some repair there. And she's like, oh, it's not my car. I borrowed it. I'm like, well, you got some splaining to do to your friend, but don't look at me for an insurance claim because you didn't do anything to my car. Like,
I mean, now though, isn't Jeep even bought out? I know like Ford and Mazda have like a lot of interchangeable parts, and I think Jeep got bought by somebody. Even Hummer got sold to a foreign company, right? I mean, it's very.
Yeah. I remember going to the scrapyard for a starter for a Chevy Aveo, and they were like, oh yeah, the Suzuki one. I was like, oh.
Right, what?
Like, yeah, oh, it's the same engine as the Suzuki.
Right.
Okay. But,
yeah, it's been like that for a while with some, like the Ford Ranger and the Mazda like B3 2300, whatever the hell their little pickup is. They're like literally the same car. They use the same parts.
Yeah, they're using imported engines, and they're just assembling things.
Right, assembled in the U.S. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you got, Shay? You got anything for us?
I'm back.
You're back?
Yes.
Yeah, you're back.
I don't know what happened. I had to reboot the system here. I don't know. I jumped on. You guys are talking about cars. That's a
Speaking of cars, speaking of cars and Ford specifically, I got to take the Bronco out in the desert again today and rule the wasteland out there, bombing around in the back trails.
I don't know. You know, I was hoping she would sign on. I asked her to call me on Tuesday, and I haven't heard from her because I hear white Bronco and I immediately think Christy.
Yeah.
And no, she hasn't commented that I've seen. I wish she would.
Cool.
Maybe I'll give her a text later. See what's
Maybe
going on.
I'll pull some dash cam video from the trail and throw it up on the channel if it came out okay. I pretty much run dash cam anytime I'm driving, which I think is something a lot more people should do, especially now with all these people blocking the roads and stuff like that. It's a good liability issue, I think, to run the dash
maybe you
cam.
guys, since we're on the same lineage of thought, it'd be good to have like dash cams on the inside as well to monitor the interactions of
Mine is dual cam and shows inside and outside the front at the same time. So if you had issues with the passenger, like for Uber or something like that, it's good. You know, if you get pulled over, you can turn it so it'll show you and the officer, you know, talking, things like that. It can show a little bit out the back window too, you know, depending on how you have it tilted. But yeah, it shows inside. One camera's filming inside the car, the passengers, and the other one out the front, like a standard dash cam. And it spits out 2 files too, which is useful. So you can just choose one or the other.
You got a girl in there in the back, you know, may want to make a little video.
Yeah. Go over some bumps, you know, and you want to check the video later.
Yeah.
All sorts of useful things you can do. Caleb Blocks is what dash cam setup do you use? Right now I have the Vantrue N2, I believe it was. You have to make sure you get the right SD card. If you get one that's too big, it won't actually work. And I completely turned off a lot of them have these impact sensors or like a accelerometer of some kind that they're supposed to auto save a file, your current file, if you get hit, so that it can't be overwritten. Because the way these dash cams work is they have like 4 or 5 hours, it'll just record and then start back over again. So you always have like the last 4 or so hours of your driving on there. Right. And it's supposed to have an event folder that if you have like something that's jarring, it'll throw it into that folder and won't delete it or won't overwrite it. And you can set the sensitivity on that, but I set that up to maximum or like minimum sensitivity rather, so that it shouldn't save files unless you just get totally rammed, and it would still fill up that folder and then it would start getting buggy when that folder was full. So unless you're going to constantly pull that dash cam down and delete the contents of that folder, I just turned off that setting completely and it's been running a lot better for me. But yeah, the Vantrue N2 is the one I use. There's all sorts of other options out there. You don't necessarily need the dual cam because that one is around 180 to 200 bucks, not counting the SD card, but very, very glad I have it. And eventually you need to replace the SD cards. They're only good for so many cycles and the dash cams do constantly rewrite them. So you definitely need to have yeah, I've heard that, Mark Olson, that in Russia, you see all these crazy videos from Russia because they all have dash cams, because I've heard that the insurance there is incredibly difficult to get claims paid out on, you know, so you have to have like evidence or maybe they won't even give you insurance if you don't have, or something along those lines. So for years, there's been dash cam videos coming, like grainy dash cam video coming out of Russia because they have a lot, for whatever reason, there's something nuances to their insurance that make it a lot more benefit to have dash cams.
Just glorifies and shows the depths, the craziness of where the trifecta can go.
Yeah, talking about everywhere.
There's a guy in Russia. I got a friend of mine taught me a lot about computers back in the day, an older Russian gentleman that said this guy had this old piece of shit truck. It's just all rusted, breaking down. Sounds like one of my vehicles, or most of my vehicles. It just barely run, but his bumper was chrome and it was immaculate. And the guy did body work.
Buffed out chrome bumper.
Buffed up, beautiful, beautiful bumper. And his scam was pretty direct. He would pretend like a squirrel or something was gonna hit his truck, slam on the brakes.
And when they so much as scratched his bumper, oh, look at that.
He'd get out of the truck,
yeah.
He'd look at the bumper, say, hey, you know, and just say, hey, you know, give me $100 and we'll call it even.
I think that's one of the reasons these cameras are so popular, because that sort of scam is fairly prevalent. People throwing themselves in front of the cars and then being like, oh, you hit me. So now they have these videos like, come on, bro, you're on video.
Yeah, smart thing to have. One other quick story with respect to scams. I don't know if it's a scam or not, but it's almost putting political correctness back into its face. There was a gentleman in, I want to say Alberta, maybe Dean has heard the story, where he changed his gender, because you can apparently do that here in Canada. Went into the driver's license office, said, hey, I identify as female, and got all the proper documentation, called his insurance company and said, well, I'm a female, I'm going to pay the female rate. So he did it exclusively for the purpose of
paying lower rate.
Yeah, so there's a
wow. All I got to say about that one is wow.
Didn't Lauren Southern, isn't she Canadian? She was like a YouTuber commentator.
Yes.
She did that where she changed her
Right.
gender
To
on the
male.
driver's license to male. Yeah. Funny stuff. Clown world, man.
Does
It's
Dean
weird out there.
ever regret looking like Ron Jeremy? There you go, Dean. Do you regret looking like
Ron
Ron Jeremy?
I got to tell my fiance this. Apparently, the viewers think I look like Ron Jeremy.
I don't see it.
She doesn't see it.
Caleb said
Yeah.
the female insurance rate is lower, and it's actually yes, because they cause from what I've heard is that females are in more number of accidents, but they're much less severe. So they're bumping into mailboxes and nicking bumpers and hitting curbs, but the guys get in there and racing down there. So when they get in accidents, they're typically more disastrous and more fatal and things like that. So hence more expensive as well.
Well, interestingly, I found a way to connect this to the coronavirus.
See it.
I don't know about the States, and maybe Eric can elaborate on this, but we're getting a lot of speeding incidents here, a lot of drunk driving, people caught for drinking and driving, that sort of thing. So there's obviously stresses psychologically within the populations. People are drinking more excessively, they're using drugs more excessively,
Yeah.
and they are taking a lot more risk. So Dean, Eric, have you seen any surplus in driving, reckless driving related incidents?
I haven't heard of anything. I mean, the drivers here have been, ever since I moved here, I noticed that they were exceptionally bad, like just epically bad. And I came from Florida, which is already known for having kind of aggressive asshole drivers. But the people here are on another level, because they're not even necessarily aggressive where you can just predict what they're trying to do. They're just out of their mind. Like I've had people coming at me down the wrong way, stuff like that. Like they'll be in a turn lane on the left side, and all of a sudden they'll decide they want to turn right and just go across 3-4 lanes of traffic, and just like, what the hell is they're just out of their minds. So I haven't necessarily noticed it get any worse or heard that it's getting worse, but it was already pretty bad here.
I got to agree with Eric. I mean, the only thing I wish is we got people trained to stay 6 feet apart from each other now.
Yeah, right.
If you could just train them to stay at least 6 feet off of my bumper.
6
that
car
would be
lengths, yeah.
Forget 6 car lengths. Just stay 6 feet off.
Yeah,
of my
it's
bumper.
not literally on your bumper.
But no, I don't all the time I want to just lean out the window and tell buddy, hey, refill your blinker fluid, idiot. No, an increase? No, I don't think so. People are just as bad at drivers as they always were.
That's funny. The blinker fluid thing is funny because there's this girl at work who like her flat tire or something, and I was like, make sure you tell them to put the winter air in. It's getting to be that time of year. And she was like, why are you trying to make me look stupid? And I was like, oh, you know that one?
That's funny.
It's good stuff. The blinker fluid was a good one.
Yeah.
They always had those in the Army, like the go get a exhaust sample with the trash bag, or I know the armor guys say they'd make them find the soft spots in the tank armor and like tapping a hammer along the hole. Or a box of grid squares was another one. So like the maps are printed with the actual grid squares that represent like a kilometer or whatever. So allegedly there'd be a box of these somewhere. And good stuff.
DUIs on the rise here. At night, the motorcycles are loud. From Mirror This Mayhem. And it's a sign for things to come. There's some people that are breezing through this. I suspect most preppers are.
Yeah.
There's some people that have lost everything financially, and it's a whole new world. And I keep repeating the same story, not week after week. I know I brought this up in the past, which is I can't just fathom how extroverts are dealing with this psychologically. To get out and touch. There's some people where touching is their primary way of communicating. They want to get close. They like hugging. They like all of that sort of stuff. And being somebody that's introverted, it's difficult for me to compute what the extroverted people are going through in isolation. And I don't want to leave on a negative or bad note, but
yeah, I do probably need to call it. It's getting to be that time.
Yeah, Dean, thanks for joining us this evening. This is great.
Been an absolute
We're
pleasure.
gonna have.
Yeah, I
you
appreciate
gotta-
it for
You gotta
sure.
come back. You gotta come back
Sure.
for sure.
I got to
Yeah.
come back. Sure. I came for Eric's hair, but I'll come back for the great conversation.
Well, yeah, exactly. Great. Hope it didn't disappoint.
Not at all.
I was out on the windiest day of the year and it still is holding up. So
Yeah.
Well, at least you've still got it. So
yeah, exactly. Thank you, gentlemen.
Right.
Pleasure as always. And for everyone watching, I appreciate it. Thumbs up the video if you can. Check out. You don't have a YouTube channel, Dean, or do you?
I do. I don't have any content on it yet.
Okay.
I just opened it up like last week.
Well, if you
So
if you want to
that's-
pimp the address, I'm sure we can send a few people over your way.
well,
And
hey,
then
instead of
always go for it.
yeah, instead of YouTube, you can check out the Canadian Preppers Network blog at canadianpreppersnetwork.com. We also have a discussion forum at internationalpreppersnetwork.net. So either one of those, go over, have a great time. There's lots of people there with lots of great ideas. Be more than happy to have everybody over there.
Awesome. And check out Che's channel, Prepper Logic, and JJ's channel at Reality Survival and Prepping, because even though he couldn't be here, he's the one who invited me and Che on to start this whole thing. So definitely check his out. He'll be back when he's done moving. And then obviously you're on my channel already, so just stay here. Next week, same time, same place. Thanks, guys.
9 p.m. 9 p.m. EST. Lord Humongous. Thank you, Eric.
Yep.
It's a pleasure,
Thanks, everybody.
guys.
See ya.
Everybody, have a great evening.
You too.
Wait,
And
I'm
three,
still
two,
live. Wait.
one,
I forgot how to cut it off.
Alive. No, hold on.